We're just hours away from the kickoff for the Bills-Chiefs game. And if you look at the headlines, you're reminded of something nonsensical that has been happening for decades in the NFL. So here on this local story, we have Patrick Mahomes versus Josh Allen is the modern day version of Tom Brady versus Peyton Manning rivalry. And if we go ahead and scroll down this article, you could see that it's all about the QB matchups. So here we have a graphic saying Patrick Mahomes versus Josh Allen has happened 4 times. Then we have Manning and Brady, and then other QB matchups. And then scrolling down, again, most playoff matchups between starting QBs. So this article is dedicated to these head-to-head matchups. And then if we look through more articles, Josh Allen versus Patrick Mahomes, head-to-head playoff stats going into battle. A New York Post article: Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen rivalry approaching Tom Brady, Peyton Manning levels. Another article: AFC Championship QB matchup: Chiefs Patrick Mahomes versus Bills Josh Allen. Who has the edge? And then one more: Josh Allen versus Patrick Mahomes playoff history. So you can see here that there's this idea that these two quarterbacks are squaring off against each other, much like would be the case in a singles match in tennis or with MMA or boxing or another sport where you have two individuals that are going against each other. But that's not what's happening in the NFL. So in the NFL, we have two quarterbacks with two completely different baselines. And let's just go over the differences really fast. They're playing against two different defenses with two different defensive schemes. What if one of the defenses is bad and the other is good? What if one of the defenses set up the quarterback, or the special teams set up the quarterback with easy scores? They have different receivers, and so the same thing is going to play out. What if the quarterback's receivers are more talented than the other? What if one of the receivers drops the ball? We remember with Lamar Jackson last week, he had Andrews dropping and fumbling the ball. They have different offensive lines, so they have different protections. So they might have more or less time than the other. That's getting at the protection. And then here we have the running backs count too. So they both have different running backs, and the running backs might contribute differently. So the point is that the head-to-head matchups doesn't logically make any sense because they have two entirely different circumstances that they're working with. So it would be more apt to say Josh Allen versus the Chiefs defense and vice versa. But as it is, it just doesn't make any sense to have these headlines where it's Patrick Mahomes versus Josh Allen, and having this rivalry. And so, yes, in the rivalry sense, there can be somewhat of a rivalry, but it's not really an exact rivalry. And the head-to-head playoff stats, again, they don't really logically make sense. And then so here's a Reddit thread. Why do people say it's a QB versus a QB when they aren't on the same field at the same time? And so this is getting at exactly what I'm talking about now. And one person, the first comment, we have narratives. I've never understood how people say that Mahomes outdueled Allen in the 13 seconds of the game. It isn't Allen's fault. His defense couldn't stop the Chiefs for 13 seconds. That's just one example. Yeah. So, and then he writes, a better but less exciting statement is that Mahomes outdueled the Bills defense. And so, yes, that would be more accurate. But at the same time, this is understandable because it's a football game. We're trying to promote it. Even if the two teams have a rivalry, it's still more attention grabbing, and people understand it better if there is a face to the rivalry. So if we have two individuals, it's more specific versus two teams. So it makes it more marketable, and that's what some of these other commenters getting at. Um, QBs are the most important players, and they get credit for the team success. Right or wrong, that's just how the media describes it. Makes it for a more fun, interesting narrative. Yes. So, and then we have another comment, because it's simplified. Just this would be difficult, too complex. It wouldn't, if we were to describe what was actually happening, where it was, let's say, Josh Allen versus the Chiefs defense, and then Patrick Mahomes versus the Bills defense. It just that's not as compelling. And so, yes, this other commenter writes, makes things easier and exciting and more to comprehend for marketing purposes. So, yeah, I'm not going to go into it any further, but this is something that's always been the case, and it makes sense, but it doesn't. It makes sense in the sense that we have to sell this matchup, and that it's easier to sell it than it as a quarterback versus a quarterback, and having this individual rivalry, even though they have completely different baselines. And it's unfair in a way to compare those baselines, because one quarterback could easily have better circumstances than the other. But if we actually extrapolate everything and have this app comparison, then we're going to go get too far, and people won't care. People won't read our article, and it really won't make sense. So it doesn't make sense logically, but it also makes sense practically. So I think that's the best way to look at this.